Hello there, everyone. Patricia Hayes here, and welcome to Coffee Time Career Chat. Super excited to be here. I know I'm just drinking coffee, I promise you guys. Anyway, glad to be here with you all for yet another episode of Coffee Time Career Chat in this month, where we are continuing our conversation about networking into new beginnings. So last week was part one. Week is part two. And the distinction has been in part one, we really talked more about philosophical approaches, really on focusing on mindset and how you think about when you are in a new professional situation. So whether it's your first job ever, congratulations, or if you are in transition as a professional or as a business owner. And what are those things? What are those things you really need to be thinking about during this new beginning? And so we talked about those things where we talked about reframing your mindset from one of fear to one of excitement and documenting what those feelings are on each level so that you can start fresh. And by not ignoring any of your, don't ignore your feelings, right? Don't, undermine yourself and all of that by trying to say, oh, that's ridiculous. No, acknowledge them, but then move forward. We talked about exploring opportunities and the whole newness with fresh eyes. And last, we talked about making a new commitment and as you move forward and why that was important. So this week we are continuing with part two with some very specific strategic activities and actions that you can take in this new beginning. So without further ado, let's jump right in with, first of all, you got to find your people. Now, this may seem really obvious because a lot of people are like, oh, well, we automatically do that. But we are in different times, right? We've been approaching things in a whole different way in the last couple of years. So this is thinking about it as we move forward at the time of this recording in 2022, and how do you move forward with finding your people? And I will first preface that by saying in person or virtually, okay? Do not feel limited by your physical circumstances. That's really powerful, y'all. Do not be limited by your physical circumstances, because things are so different than where they were even just a few years ago that you've got to take that into consideration as you move forward. So if you have been operating in a primarily virtual space previously, then don't just ditch it, right? Continue trying to connect with people in that way while also incorporating doing so in person. Now, what does this look like? Whether you are in person or virtual, you can find your people by, of course, being social, right? You got to go to lunch. You have to, the happy hour situation. Y'all know I'm not a fan of happy hours, but if you approach it with the right mindset and the right way, they can be very useful. Which is about developing deeper relationships, connecting with people on a deeper level, not just, in and out. And again, where you are in your professional journey and how you approach that will differ. But I will say, I don't care if you are a brand new out of college person or someone who's been in the business for 20 years, you need to approach happy hour with a different perspective than the average person. Okay. Yes, you're going to be social, maybe have a good time, but you want to be able to know that when you leave there that night or that day, that you have connected with some depth with one or two people, okay? Not just collecting business cards. We do not attend happy hours just to collect business cards because you won't remember who those people are in 24 hours, okay? So that's my little mini lecture on happy hours. But being social, whether it's attending lunches, grabbing coffee with people, again, all of those things can be done virtually or in person. So there's no limitation on that. by attending those conferences and workshops. If you are a brand new person to your industry, this should be like at the top of your list of things, because you will meet people who are uh, have the same interests professionally, right? Like, this is the place where for sure, without a doubt, that you should be meeting people who have aligned interest in the work that you do. So, making an effort, making more than an effort, being deliberate about attending conferences and workshops, not just the ones recommended by or required by your employer, but going over and above and figuring out what other opportunities for learning and growth can you incorporate into your repertoire. And y'all know this is something I feel really strongly about, because if you limit your professional growth only to what your employer will pay for, then that's as far as you will get. You have to be willing to invest in yourself. And sometimes that means I'm going to take a day or two here and go attend another workshop that I have to pay for in order to attend, because my employer won't do it. I've done it before. I highly encourage it. I've had conversations and clients who are like, yeah, I'm paying for this training. I'm paying for this consult. I'm paying for this coaching, because they know the value of developing themselves and making sure to invest in it. Okay. Whether you join some new committees or projects, right? Whether they're affiliated with your work, whether it's some volunteer work that's related, whatever it might be. But this is how you find your people. And this is not haphazard, because too often in the past, we've relied on just, haphazard circumstance to find the right people to connect up with. And we're not doing that anymore. Am I saying that everything has to be focused on work, 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 work? Absolutely not. Okay. That is not what I'm saying. Even if you are connecting with people who you align with from a personal level, you still want to be deliberate about it, right? Don't be haphazard about it. And so, since we are talking about in terms of professional development and career growth, this is where you do want to be deliberate. You want to be focused and how you approach finding the people who will become your new colleagues, who will become the folks in your industry that you reach out to when you need some help, when you're seeking some fresh insights, whatever it may be. So that's why this is really about finding your people and doing it deliberately, okay? Not waiting on chance, not waiting for the boss to say, oh, go meet with these people. You have to take control of this process and be very deliberate. And the sooner you begin, the more powerful your relationship building will be, the stronger your network will be 5, 10, 15 years down the road. And I'm telling you about what I know, not what I think, okay? There is power in putting that effort into it right now. And some folks were like, oh, I don't want to be thinking that far ahead. That's fine. But 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, and you are ready for the next transition. And we know those career transitions are not even taking that long these days. They have, within a couple of years. You want to make sure that you have done your work to build up relationships that you can rely on in the future, not just today. Okay. You want to build sustainable relationships. And that means you have to put some work into it, right? So think about that. Building the right relationships is another little piece of work that you have to do. You do have to be deliberate about it if that's what you want to make sure that you have, so that you can tap into that network later on for whatever reasons. Okay. So find your people. Secondly, you want to identify a mentor or a role model. So here's a couple of different things. Take your time doing this. Sometimes you may see someone automatically and but even then, take some time identifying who that is. Because as you are growing in your profession, in your new role, in the new job, whatever it is, in your new business, you want to have time to really soak in right? Everything that's going on around you. And then when you identify who's a good mentor or a role model, you will have more information to rely on, right? So this is not a, 2, 3 weeks thing or even 2, 3 months. This may take 6 months at least for you to really identify who it is you would like to, maybe seek out as a mentor or that you can look up to as a role model because you want to have enough time behind you in this new role and this new position to really hopefully have seen a lot of what's going on and where you could use the support and guidance from someone. Now, this presumption, a lot of times people presume that that mentor, that role model has to be in your new company or in your new, whatever. That is not the case. All right. You can find and seek out a role model, a mentor who is not in your company, may not even be in the same industry. Okay. The idea is that for the path that you have chosen, who and what are the things that you identify would be supportive to you, right? Not just about being able to do the job better or to be able to climb your career ladder, but remember when we talked about building sustainable relationships that can last across time, this is where you can look into and thinking about that, how someone approaches their own network, how someone engages in their profession, in their industry, how someone implements their values, right? Those are a lot of the things that you can take into consideration when identifying a potential mentor or a role model. Now, the younger you are, or should I say, the newer you are to your profession, this is where it may not be as long, right? And you may kind of tap into someone real quickly, but let it develop and don't expect this person to be the end all be all to you. Right. I will say that for newbies out in the workforce, they have this wrong, or should I say, I won't just say wrong, but incorrect, it's a different word, right? Assumption that when you select a mentor, that's the person who you can go to for every single thing. And most of the time, that is not the case, right? A lot of times you are able to tap into people because of some specific, connection or relationship that we see evolving. But that doesn't mean you only have one mentor. You can have another one. And this is why I like to, when I'm talking with young people, to think about this in this perspective. Don't limit it to just one person. That's a lot of pressure to put on somebody. And it makes you think that, oh, well, gosh, I can't talk to anybody else. That's not true. Okay. You want to be respectful of the relationships. You want to be very mindful, especially if someone does take you under their wing to mentor you, much less sponsor you. That's a whole other thing. Excuse me, because mentorship and sponsorship are not the same. Hit me up in the DM so you want a little bit more about the difference between the two. But that said, if you have someone who's taking you under their wing, who's willing to, give you some advice as you go along, value that, take it for what it is, and they may even lead you to other people. Okay, so be open to that. Now, on the further along the spectrum, the more experience you have in your profession and your career does not mean that you no longer need a mentor. I will tell you right now, I always tell my people, even the more experienced folks who may be 20 or 30 years in, you can always gain so much from a mentor. Maybe it becomes an accountability partner for you, right? That relationship shifts. Maybe you become a mentor. Here's the thing, because when you become a mentor, now the tables turn and you are helping to develop someone else who's coming up behind you. And guess what? There is value in that as well. Okay. So don't think that if you are well into your career that, well, I don't need a mentor. You very well might, need one. and or you may need to become a mentor so that that can help to shift you in your professional growth in approaching things from a different perspective. Okay, so identify a mentor or role model, take your time doing so. If you're further along in your career, be mindful of that. You may still need it. Maybe the person becomes an accountability partner in some way instead, and or be willing and open to being a mentor to someone who's growing up behind you. Okay, and thirdly, now let's talk about making sure that you join one new professional group. All right, this is classic, one of those things I include absolutely when I'm working through a strategic career action plan with people, is to make sure that you are, this is forcing that issue that I mentioned before about making new commitments or exploring new people, new opportunities. This forces the issue. So, as a regular part of my annual kind of self review, self eval, even before I was working for myself, I always kept a list of organizations I might be interested in, whether it was to be a member of or whether to be a speaker for or whatever, right? So it's this running list. I still keep this running list today, all right? And it's evolved over the years. And what the value of doing this is, it's helping you to stay fresh about what you think is important and what is can be influential to your professional growth. Okay. And when you focus on choosing a specific group, association, whatever, and you join, become a member, again, this forces the issue of making a fresh commitment. It also helps to address one of the other issues we talked about earlier, which is helping you to find your people. So when you join an association or a new group, professional group, or whatever, then you also know that, hey, there are other people who are here who are looking to get some support, to learn new things, get some additional resources all around that particular industry, marketplace, whatever it is. Okay. So make sure that you join at least one new professional group and then dig in, right? Find some way to really commit within that group. Again, the younger or newer you are to the profession, it's worth really digging in so that you can get some experience under your belt. And it's a great way to do it. It's kind of a twofer. You get exposure to more people. You also can add some valuable experience to your resume as a member of the association or the group. Okay. If you are further along in your career, again, this still applies. As I've stated, whether it was 30 something years ago when I first started, or now, I have a running list of organizations that I'm interested in. Maybe now I'm looking at ones that I'm willing to maybe serve as a member of the board. Maybe I'm willing to be in an advisory capacity to them. Maybe it's a mastermind because I'm at more an advanced level. So I really want to make sure that I'm communicating with people at the new level in which I'm acting upon. So this is really important for senior executives and business owners, right? Business owners, small business owners can really gain some value from joining a group of people who are in similarly situated, parts of the business or just as a business owner, and that you are willing to bounce ideas, concepts, things like that off of. Always happy to have a conversation with people if you're looking for a mastermind group, because there's some great opportunities out there. There are some that don't, really fit, and you want to be able to determine what's the best way moving forward for you. And there are some things that, we could explore and talk about more. So happy to have a conversation with anyone who's interested in doing that. But make sure you join that new group. Okay. And then lastly, fourth and finally, always, always, always follow up. Y'all know I'm a broken record about this, but there is power in the follow up. Always. It never ceases to amaze me when I have colleagues, when I have clients who come back and tell me, hey, you told me to go follow up on X and this is what happened. And there's always great news that comes from that, right? Whether you learn something and you now know, okay, you know what? I got some new information that I didn't have before, and now I can make a more informed decision moving forward. Or maybe the follow up exposes you to a new opportunity that would not have made itself apparent had you not followed up. Okay. So there is power in the follow up, making sure that you do so in as timely a manner as possible. Recognizing that everyone's busy, things get a little nuts and crazy. So let's say you don't follow up immediately after a coffee or a lunch, or someone you met at a meeting, at a conference. Maybe you don't follow up the next week. That's fine. But to help you do this, I highly suggest you create a little strategy for doing it on a weekly or monthly basis, right? Especially depending on what you're following up on. But I suggest that you set aside some time at least once a week that's literally labeled your follow up time, and so that you can send the email, you can make the phone call, that you can send a thank you note, whatever the case, whatever the situation calls for. When you start scheduling that into your day, it then becomes a great habit, and one that you will build in for a long time to come. And trust you me, it will always benefit you. Okay. So I personally, some of you know, I have for me, I have my networking Wednesdays. And so that for me, that's the day that I really focus in on following up with people. It's not the only day. Sometimes, networking Wednesday gets really full, really, actually reaching out, contacting, having conversations with people, all of that. So my follow up may occur later, or maybe it's the following week that I'm like, okay, I'm going to pull back on actual interactions. And maybe my networking this week is going to be following up with people in whatever capacity, scheduling future meetings, writing a thank you note, whatever it might be. Okay. Follow up. I'm telling you, because a majority of people still today do not do it. So you will put yourself in the top percentage of professionals when you engage in the follow-up in a very deliberate way. Again, this is not to, don't punish yourself or whatever, just do it and put it on your calendar. You miss some time, fine, catch up, move to the next thing. But once you start doing it on a regular basis, it will become second nature, and things and people will come to mind. You're like, oh yeah, I need to go, send so-and-so a note, or I need to schedule for that coffee we said we were going to have. And that's what you want to do, because it puts you on the path for regular engagement and regular connection time with people who are becoming a part of your long-term professional network. Okay, so there you go. Time flies. When you're working on networking into new beginnings, as we've been talking about this, some specific strategies, making sure that you're deliberately finding your people. Don't limit, how you connect with people by your physical presence. Secondly, identify a mentor or a role model. If you're more advanced in your career, you are not too senior to have a mentor. Maybe it's an accountability partner, maybe becomes a mastermind connection, and or maybe it's time for you to take on the role of being a mentor. Thirdly, make sure you join that one new professional group. It's a great way to knock off two things at one time, which is building some expertise in your field of interest, as well as finding other people who are interested in similar things in your profession. And then lastly, making sure to do the follow-up. Okay, there we are. So glad to be with you all yet again. Looking forward to following up myself with some of you. So hit me up in the DMs or in the comments if you have any questions, or you're like, you know what, I need to set up a consultation because I need to talk a little bit about some of this a little bit more in detail. Okay, happy to do that. Look forward to following up. Have a fantastic week. Take care. Bye-bye.